Greetings to all truth seekers out there. Who am I, you may ask? Well, I don't care to give you my name. If you have to call me something, though, call me Athanasius. And if you're wondering who Athanasius was, well, I really recommend you read a history book on the early church. But since most people aren't going to bother to take the time to do that, I might as well just tell you. Athanasius was the Bishop of Alexandria in the late 200s, during a time of great crisis within the church. The Arian heresy had infected the church leadership and was actively destroying what God had set up upon this earth. Athanasius stood up against the Arians and spoke God's truth. For that, he was exiled, excommunicated, and ultimately had some assassination attempts against him. He survived them all to his natural death, at which point, about that time, the Arians started losing their power. Eventually, God's truth won out, and future bishops reinstated Athanasius to his rightful place, removing the veil of excommunication and declaring him a saint for his actions. He became known as a champion of the faith. So, why have I chosen him specifically? Because, as a Catholic, I look around and I see the state of the church, and I see that the leadership has unfortunately fallen into the heresy of modernism. And because of this, there are a great many wrongs and evils that are not being corrected within the church today and within the larger Christian community as well. And I am tired of it. I am tired of staying silent. I am tired of not seeing the leaders of the church do what they should be doing. As shepherds, they are supposed to guide the flock, and they are not doing so. They are instead giving into the gods of political correctness, of leftism, Marxism, and so forth. And so, like Athanasius, I am standing up for the truth. So, if you have to call me anything, call me Athanasius. Now, last weekend, our country, unfortunately, was rocked by a horrific event. A Muslim terrorist attacked a gay nightclub in Orlando, Florida. Many of you already know the latest news on that. 49 dead, over 50 injured. Some of them may still not make it. It is truly a tragic event, and I offer my prayers to those that are suffering through this event at this time, and I hope that in due time they will be able to find peace and comfort. But that is not the real reason why I'm addressing this video. This video goes out to Bishop Robert Lynch of St. Petersburg, Florida. Your blog post on Monday, I have to say, is, to put it nicely, a really unfortunate attempt to try to place blame where it shouldn't be. I am ashamed as a Catholic at your blog post. And for those that have not seen this blog post, I am going to read it out loud, and I'm going to rip into this thing and show you why Bishop Robert Lynch should not have said the things that he said in it. For those wanting to see the original post, I will provide a link in the video description below. The post was titled, Orlando, Orlando, we love you. And it starts as follows. Today I write with a heavy heart, arising from the tragedy which occurred in the early morning hours yesterday at a gay, lesbian, transgender nightclub in Orlando, our neighbor to the east. Yesterday, the best I could muster was to send these words by text message to my brother, Bishop John Noonan, Bishop of Orlando. Quote, John, I am so sorry. With love to and for all. Today, with a new dawn, I once again have some thoughts which I wish to share. I really wish you didn't share these thoughts, Bishop Robert Lynch. I wish you had just stopped at expressing your condolences to the tragedy that had happened in Orlando. Unfortunately, you continued on. Our founding parent... Oh, dear. No. 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 our founding parents, excuse me, Bishop Robert Lynch, but using the word parents denotes that there were two sexes involved, male and female, mother and father. There were no women involved in the Constitution. This is not a sexist thing to say. This is historical fact. And the fact that you would try to appease the gods of political correctness by changing founding fathers to founding parents immediately shows where your loyalties lie. That you were not interested in telling the truth, but you were interested in appeasing a group of people who wish to change our history and change fact into mere opinion, or to interject their opinion and political correctness into an already established narrative. Do not do this. This is not correct. This is a falsehood. Stop it. Already you're gone off the rails. To continue, our founding fathers had no knowledge of assault rifles, which are intended to be weapons of mass destruction. In crafting the Second Amendment to the Constitution, which I affirm, they thought only of the most awkward of pistols and heavy shotguns. No, this is not accurate. If they were to limit it to the muskets and to the flintlocks of their era, they would have put specifically muskets and flintlocks. But there is no language. All it says is weapons. All right? Arms. I apologize. That the people have the right to keep and bear arms. What are arms? Arms, anything that you can get your hands on that you can use as a weapon. It can be anything from a club to an M16. Arms is not specific. Also, to use your logic, if modern weapons are not to be included into the Second Amendment, as you assert, then by that same extension, computers, blogs, YouTube, and other forms of communication of today are not protected under the First Amendment. The problem with your view, Bishop Robert Lynch, is that it is so myopic and so wrong in interpreting what the founders meant when they wrote those words down into the Constitution that you forget. There's no way that these men could have known where technology was going to lead. There is no way that we today know where technology is going to lead. How many Supreme Court fights have come about in just the last century alone because of the advance of technology, wiretapping, cars, and so interstate commerce and so forth? Your assertion is not only dead wrong, it leads me to believe that you are intentionally trying to mislead your congregation. I hope that this is just out of ignorance, but given how in the first two sentences of the second paragraph, there is an underlying theme towards a false narrative, I pray that, as I said, that it is out of ignorance, but it seems that you are trying to push lies towards your faithful. Continuing on with your blog. I suspect they are turning in their graves if they can but glimpse at what their words now protect. Well, no, they're actually turning in their graves over the raping of your logic. But I digress. It is long past time to ban the sale of all assault weapons whose use should be available only to the armed forces. Newsflash, genius. They are banned. Guess what? Assault weapons have been banned since the 1930s. And the fact that you actually put this sentence in here proves just how ignorant you are. What is an assault weapon, you may ask? An assault weapon is a weapon that can go fully automatic. It is not something that looks like a military gun. Looks do not make a gun cosmetic as much as makeup makes a ugly woman look pretty. Although, Hillary can try, but I digress again. So, to define an assault weapon, and to use the example of Orlando here, the weapon that he had, first of all, is not considered an assault weapon because it does not go fully automatic. It goes what's called semi-automatic. And what is semi-automatic? In a semi-automatic gun, you load your rounds into a clip and shove it up into the chamber, the gun chamber. When you rack the gun, the chamber loads the bullet into the barrel. You pull the trigger. Trigger sets about a series of contraptions. I don't know the full names of them, okay? That eventually causes the hammer to strike the primer on the back of the bullet, which causes an explosion inside the shell. The gunpowder ignites. The explosion shoots the bullet head out through the barrel, and as the gas expands in the chamber there, it pushes the chamber back to open up, expend the round, and then load another round into the chamber. However, the new round does not fire unless you pull the trigger again. That is the difference between automatic and semi-automatic. Automatic just keeps firing as long as you hold the trigger down. Semi-automatic, you have to release the trigger and pull it again. Therefore, it does not make it an assault weapon. Also, the term assault weapon, quote unquote, is such a boogeyman that it's completely stupid. Anything can be an assault weapon. If you use it to strike another person, have you not committed assault in the eyes of the law? I mean, to say that this particular gun is an assault weapon is completely erroneous and stupid, because I could take a pencil and turn it into an assault weapon. I can take a hammer. I can take a club, a baseball bat, other blunt instruments, knives, whatever you wish, and turn it into an assault weapon. The point being is that the gun is an inanimate object. It cannot fire on its own. It does not go off, contrary to what Hollywood has you to believe, where you can throw a gun down the stairs and just have it shoot rounds continuously as it bounces on the steps. Guns are made to such a high caliber that you cannot have a misfire unless you yourself, the person, screw something up or configure the gun in such a way against the manufacturer's wishes. Your next line, if one is truly pro-life, then embrace this issue also and work for the elimination of sales to those who would turn them on innocents. So, we should then ban the sales not only of guns, but of knives, of baseball bats, of shovels, of axes, of boxing gloves, anything that could cause physical harm and possible death to a human being, which means virtually anything. You can use any object to murder your fellow man. So you're harping on this boogeyman of the assault weapon being the gun is so stupid that if I could smack you upside the back of the head, I would. Unfortunately, you didn't stop there. You had to go on to the next politically correct talking point. So, to begin again with your blog, quote, second, sadly, it is religion, including our own, which targets mostly verbally and also often breeds contempt for gays, lesbians, and transgender people. Attacks today in LGBT men and women often plant the seed of contempt, then hatred, which can ultimately lead to violence. First off, what was the religion again of the SOB that shot up the nightclub there? That's right. He was a Muslim. He was not Catholic. In fact, all indications point to the fact that he had nothing to do with a Catholic church, he never stepped foot in a Catholic church or anything like that. Okay? So to put blame on religion as a whole, and especially blame us, Catholics, for this attack is especially galling for me. And I cannot tell you how angry I am to have you as a bishop speaking out in such a manner, attacking Mother Church the way that you are. And I will get into this more further, but let me continue on with your blog here. Continuing, Those women and men who were mowed down early yesterday morning were all made in the same image and likeness of God. We teach that. We should believe that. We must stand for that. Without yet knowing who perpetrated the Pulse mass murders, when I saw the... I'm sorry. Without yet knowing who perpetrated the Pulse mass murders... Oh, wait, you wrote this on Monday. So, okay, perhaps you didn't know all about the, who the identity of the man was and so forth. But, there's this little thing called update. Maybe you might want to consider that in the future once we get more information in the situation. Or perhaps you should hold back from spewing your diatribe of insolence towards the Catholic faith until you know all the facts. Unfortunately, though, people of your mindset don't know when to shut up and let the facts come in before you hop on your horses and start screaming for political correctness and for other social justice issues. You irk me to no end when you do this. So, restarting that sentence, without yet knowing who perpetrated the Pulse mass murders, when I saw the imam come forward at a press conference yesterday morning, I knew that somewhere in the story there would be a search to find religious roots. While deranged people do senseless things, all of us observe, judge, and act from some kind of religious background. Singling out people for victimization because of their religion, their sexual orientation, their nationality must be offensive to God's ears. It has to stop also. You know what also has to stop? This damn victimization card that you people love to play. This guy was a Muslim. And are there Muslims that don't believe in using violence? Yes. Are there Christians that unfortunately use violence? Yes. However, there is a big difference between the two religions here that you as a bishop should know. And the fact that you are again, I'm not going to say you are intentionally, but it sure sounds like you are intentionally misleading people here on this issue. The fact that you are misleading, possibly even lying to people about this, all right, is more offensive to God than simply, quote unquote, profiling, or in your case, victimization of people because of their religion. Let's give you a historical lesson here. Which religion for the last 1400 years has been in a constant war with the world? Islam. Starting from its founder, Muhammad, who, when he wasn't satisfied that his uncle's caravan would not join with him in his religion, he got a bunch of thieves and murderers and thugs and went out and killed his uncle's caravan. And it didn't stop there. The spread of violence under Islam is a recorded fact throughout the 1400 years of its existence, coming down to today. Now, have Christians committed some atrocities? Yes, unfortunately. I'm not going to say that we are completely blameless in this history, but we're not going around strapping bombs to handicapped children and blowing them up. We're not throwing gays off of rooftops or hanging them from cranes because they got caught being gay. We are not stoning women because they got raped, and under Muslim law, that you have to have 4 male witnesses to get off of a rape or get off of an adultery allegation in Islam. This is the distinct difference between Islam and Christianity. Christianity teaches to turn the other cheek, to love thy neighbor. Islam teaches to spread war and violence against the infidel, that the infidel either converts, they are subjugated, or they are killed. This is all fact that you can look up in the Quran itself. Stop lying to us. Stop trying to say that Christianity is the same as Islam. We are not. Christianity was founded by Jesus Christ himself as a church of peace, of love, of fellowship and brotherhood. Islam was founded as a cult of death, of war, of destruction and plunder and rape and murder. Furthermore, Bishop Robert Lynch, if you feel that Christians are being derelict in their duties towards their fellow man, especially to those within the LGBT community, then perhaps what you should have done instead was taken this opportunity to remind your flock what the Catholic Church actually teaches when it comes to homosexuality. And I have it right here for you. The Catechism of the Catholic Church, paragraphs 2357, 2358, and 2359. And I will read for you some excerpts from these paragraphs here. Basing itself on sacred scripture, which presents homosexual acts as acts of grave depravity, tradition has always declared that homosexual acts are intrinsically disordered. They are contrary to the natural law. They close the sexual act to the gift of life. They do not proceed from a genuine affection and sexual complementarity. Under no circumstances can they be approved. The next paragraph. The number of men and women who have deep-seated homosexual tendencies is not negligible. They do not choose their homosexual condition. For most of them, it is a trial. They must be accepted with respect, compassion, and sensitivity. Every sign of unjust discrimination in their regard should be avoided. These persons are called to fulfill God's will in their lives, and if they are Christians, to unite to the sacrifice of the Lord's cross the difficulties they may encounter from their condition. The last paragraph, and this is the key thing here that a lot of you do not pick up on and do not bother to speak truth to. Homosexual persons are called to chastity. By the virtues of self-mastery, they teach them inner freedom, at times by the support of disinterested friendship. By prayer and sacramental grace, they can and should gradually and resolutely approach Christian perfection. It is all spelled out right here in the Catechism. You as a bishop should know this. You as a bishop have an obligation and a moral duty to teach your flock this, and you have failed in this. Instead, you go on a blame game to say that because we condemn, quote-unquote, homosexual acts, that we are somehow complicit in the violence against them. Wrong, sir. Wrong. It is not wrong to stand up for the truth of God and to say that homosexuals should be treated as human beings, but that their acts should be condemned. Love the sinner, hate the sin. Yet you do not teach that in your blog. Excuse me, I'm a little passionate here, and I am trying very hard not to swear as much as I would love to spend more time on this issue. Unfortunately, I've already spent enough time, and so I am going to try to wrap this up as quickly as I can. Moving on to your third point. Quote, third, responding by barring people of Muslim-only faith from entering the country solely because of their stated faith until they can be checked out is un-American, even in these most challenging of times and situations. There are as many good, peace-loving, and God-fearing Muslims to be found as Catholics or Methodists or Mormons or Seventh-day Adventists. The devil and devilish intent escape no religious iteration. Well, okay, I can agree with you on that one there. The devil and devilish intent does not escape the various religions there. There are good people, there are bad people within each, but there is a very distinct difference, again, with Islam. Unlike the other Christian faiths within this country, Islam does not follow God's law. There is instead what they call Sharia law, and Sharia law dictates such wonderful things as cutting the hands off of thieves, stoning women who are caught in adultery, throwing gays off of roofs, or actually, no, I apologize. I think it's stoning gays as well, but in their world, it doesn't matter how you kill a gay. It just matters that they're dead, as is evidence of the attack by this Muslim SOB last weekend. But again, if you truly knew that, or if you do know that and you're being willfully ignorant or hiding of the truth, then you should also know that barring people of Muslim faith is not un-American. There is nothing in our Constitution that says that we are not allowed to bar certain people from coming into our country of a certain faith. In fact, last time I checked, the Constitution applies to us here in America, us American citizens. It is not a universal contract with the world. No other country acknowledges our Constitution as their own, and we, likewise, do not acknowledge any other country's Constitution as our own. We have our Constitution solely to benefit the citizens of America. So we are allowed to dictate the rules of who comes in and who doesn't. And if it comes down to would I rather have a Muslim come into this country or not, it is not un-Christian or un-American to say, no, I do not want that particular group to come in, because as we are seeing time and time and time and time again, whenever Muslims have been let into countries, be it Britain, be it France or Belgium, or even here within the United States, they set up their own communities. They do not assimilate with their host nation, and because of this, they grow, what's the correct word here? Hateful. Yes, hateful of the host nation and its occupants. And there have been how many outbreaks of violence from Muslims? Let's see. You had Paris, France last year. You had Belgium this year. You now have Orlando. How many have gone back to the 1970s when we really started opening up or actually 1960s when we really started opening up the immigration floodgates, but 1970s is when you really started seeing Islam started taking off with the fall of Iran and so forth. But I digress. I'm sorry. Anyway, how many more attacks must there be before people like you wake up and see that there is a serious problem within the Islamic community? And that is not just because we are victimizing them by discriminating against their religion and so forth. No, that is bunk. That is total BS. And you should know better. As learned as I assume you are, you should know the truth. Here's another thing, Bishop Robert Lynch, that I'm sure you're aware of, but you're probably just hiding from the general public. But what the Catholic Church teaches on immigration. And going back to the Catechism of the Catholic Church here, paragraph 2241. The more prosperous nations are obliged, to the extent they are able, to welcome the foreigner in search of security and the means of livelihood which he cannot find in his country of origin. Public authorities should see to it that the natural right to is respected that places a guest under the protection of those who receive him. That's the first part of this paragraph. And there's a key sentence that you constantly leave out that you and other people that think like you constantly leave out, and that is to the extent that they are able. Immigration is not a right. It is not a God-given right. It is a privilege. It is no different than myself coming to your home and you inviting me in. You can choose to refuse me entry at your doorstep. You can tell me that I cannot come onto your property legally, or I would be cited for trespassing. The same goes for immigration. We have a right to say that we want you to come in here, or we don't want you to come in here. Now, the second part of this paragraph. Political authorities, for the sake of the common good for which they are responsible, may make the exercise of the right to emigrate subject to various jurisdictional conditions, especially with regard to the immigrants' duties towards their country of adoption. Immigrants are obliged to respect with gratitude the material and spiritual heritage of the country that receives them, to obey its laws, and to assist in carrying civic burdens. That is the second part that you fail to address when you talk about immigration. There is no just throw the doors open, put out the welcome mat, and bring everybody in. Immigrants are responsible to behave in their host nations. They are responsible to assimilate, to learn the language, to help out with their communities, their host communities, and so forth. It is not just a bring them all in and we'll just take care of them from the cradle to the grave, which you seem to be asserting here in your statements. So when it comes to barring people of Muslim-only faith from entering the country solely because of their stated faith, there is no quote-unquote obligation, according to the catechism, to bring in people that want to kill you. There is a responsibility on part of the host nation, and there is a responsibility on part of the immigrant. And if the immigrant demonstrates that they are incapable of assimilating into the host nation, or they express ill intent towards the citizens of the host nation, then the authorities of the host nation should not allow them to enter. Unfortunately, you seem to think that we should just love each other and embrace each other and just bring everybody in, and condemn us who are smart enough to look at these people coming from these mother countries and say, you know, these people look shady. They do not look like they want to come to this country and live in peace and harmony with me. I don't want them here. All right? If I see somebody coming up my driveway and I get a bad feeling about them, I'm not letting them in my house. I don't care if they're bleeding on my porch step. If I do not feel that they have my best interest in me, I am not going to let them in, because I ultimately have a responsibility to take care of not just myself, but my family and those who reside within my household. A country is no different than a household. A country has obligation. The leadership of country has obligations to protect its occupants, its citizens. And if that means that they have to quote unquote discriminate against a particular group, then so be it. That particular group should get their act together, shape up, and stop trying to kill their host nation if they wish to come and live over. One more point I want to make here before I move on to your final paragraph. I understand that the SOB that shot up the nightclub was not a migrant, that he was born in the United States. His parents were immigrants from Afghanistan. I understand that. However, the argument still stands. The parents should have taught their son to respect the laws of this country, to respect the culture, not agree with it. Again, he doesn't have to agree with the gay lifestyle, all right? And as Catholics, as I mentioned before, we are obligated to combat the gay lifestyle, support gays and help them to come closer to Christ, but we cannot be complicit in their sin. So if he had taken a similar route and his parents had actually taught him how to actually love his neighbor and, help those overcome their sin, then I'm sure that this tragedy would have been avoided. Instead, we are allowing people like his parents coming over here that do not wish to assimilate, and then their children grow up disgruntled, hateful, and clearly deranged towards the citizens of this country. I mean, if you probably read this, but in case you haven't, there was a report that came out within this week about the Muslim SOB that shut up the gay club, that when 9/11 happened and he was in school, he was cheering up and down on the school bus to the horror of his fellow classmates. This is not something that happened overnight. This is not something that happened as a result of the recent struggles with the militant gay agenda. This is something that is far, far more deep-seated, and it comes from his immigrant parents. I hope that you can understand this, and I hope that in the future you will correct your statements, Bishop Robert Lynch. I truly do believe that you are not a terrible person, certainly misguided, but hopefully nothing worse than that. Now, to finish up this video here, moving on to the last paragraph. Quote, "Will we ever learn?" I hate that sentence so much. I really do. Will we ever learn? No, we're never going to learn because people like you refuse to address what is actually happening here. And so you keep telling us it's one thing when really it's another, and we keep getting killed because we don't actually address the real issue. I hope so. But until the above 3 points are taken seriously by society, sadly, tragically, we can expect more Orlandos. May the souls of those faithful departed who met their God early Sunday morning rest in peace, and those recovering from deep wounds heal, help, and hope. All you had to do was take the first paragraph and the souls of the faithful departed, take that sentence and just put it into a blog, and it would have been perfect. There would have been no problems. There would have been nothing here that could be that were falsehoods, that could cause people to misunderstand what the Catholic Church actually teaches. Instead, no, you had to go and write this whole long diatribe of, I can't even think of an appropriate word for this, so I'll just leave it at diatribe here, which is probably good enough. Bishop, I don't hate you. I love you as a brother in Christ. And I truly, genuinely hope that if you happen to see this video, that you open your eyes to how wrong you are, how wrong you have been with this letter. There are problems in this country. I will readily admit that. But coming back to the faith and coming back to seeing that the truth of God is eternal, and knowing and understanding that no matter what other gods we may put before him, our God will be eternal. Our God will be eternal, and that he will always be there, and that his truths will outlast the political correctness gods, has helped me to come to terms with the state of this country. There is still good within this country, and I believe that if we come together and we pray and we seek God's truth, that someday we will be able to convert the evildoers of this country. However, your statements in this blog do not help. And so I, at this point, have to ask you, Bishop Robert Lynch, to come out with another blog or come out public or however you wish to do it and recant your statements here. They are erroneous. They are wrong. They are borderline. They're not only ignorant, but they can be construed as you lying to the public. I hope you were just ignorant. I hope that you just did not have all the facts in front of you when you were writing this blog. But it sure doesn't seem like that when reading this. So I implore you, come out and recant your statements here. You can put out another blog saying that, we should instead of pointing finger at who's to blame and who we should try to go after here. Instead, we should be like Christ and turn the other cheek and love our fellow man and try to bring healing and comfort to those that have been afflicted by this. I wouldn't have a problem with that sort of blog. But this blog I do have a problem with. And if you do not choose to recant it, then you need to retire. You need to step down. Because as a shepherd of Christ, you should know better. You should be setting a far better example than what you have done in this blog. This blog smacks not only every Catholic, not only the church as a whole, but it smacks God in the face. And because of this, if you do not recant your words, you need to step down because you are not worthy to be a bishop of the church. Step down, go live a life of quiet prayer and contemplation. Ask God for his forgiveness for smacking him in the face with this blog post, and give the job to a more worthy man. I will pray for you, Bishop. I will pray that you will hopefully find some enlightenment in this video, and that you come to see the error of your ways in this. I truly wish nothing more than to see you correct your errors. In Christ's peace, I leave you.